Hi, my name's Liz McCallum and I'd like to talk about citizen assemblies or CAs. They're also known as climate assemblies because that's what they've been used for more frequently in recent times to tackle issues around the climate emergency. So what is a citizens assembly? It's a group of people who are brought together to discuss an issue or issues and to reach a conclusion about what they think the outcome should be. So, for example, as I said earlier, to tackle the climate emergency, how to reduce carbon emissions, for example, by a certain time. So the people are chosen, the people who take part in this citizens' assembly, are chosen so that they reflect the wider population in terms of demographics. So, for example, age, gender, ethnicity, social class, and in some of their opinions. It's similar to a jury in the legal system who listen to evidence presented. However, during a CA meeting, a Citizens Assembly meeting, the participants are allowed to ask the experts questions if they don't understand something. CAs can be held at national or local level. At national level, we've already had a climate assembly which took place last year in Birmingham, and that was also looking at the climate emergency and how to reduce carbon emissions by 2050, although many said that it didn't also include loss of biodiversity, which is also a massive problem, and also 2050 was rather too late. They can also be held at local levels. For example, Ada and Worthing have just completed their climate assembly and have given recommendations, and so has Brighton and Hove. So they usually take place over a number of weekends. And recent ones have been held online, which is really convenient, and they really lend themselves also to online meetings because you can have breakout rooms, etc., where small groups can get together. Participants are often a steep end to cover the costs of attending the assembly, for example, childcare, or to make up for any loss of earnings as a result of attending the assembly. So people aren't excluded because they can't afford to attend, or take away time, or take the time to attend. So how are participants selected? Is it all Extinction Rebellion people? Is it all activists? No, you see, that's also it's to reflect a microcosm of the nation or your city. So, for example, participants are selected at random from the population, the same as a jury. This could be done through an agent like Ipsos Mori. And when they have enough participants who agree to take part in the process, there is a process called sortition, which selects participants in order to represent the microcosm of the nation or the city. If it doesn't, then more random selection takes place until it does indeed reflect a mini UK or a mini Chichester. So you have a number of people who are maybe from very different backgrounds, different ages, who will take part. It's similar to how a jury is selected in the legal system, as I said. An example of this is that I have recently been contacted by Ipsos Mori, and it was to take part in an Imperial College research about COVID and whether I already had some immunity to it. So I've registered and I said, yes, I would like to take part, and then they will now reselect to see if I they can fit me in to reflect a microcosm of the UK. So, so for example, the sortition is usually undertaken by an outside body, for example, the Sortition Foundation. Their task is to select a representative of people living in that particular society or constituency, a microcosm of the demographics of constituents who will be affected by the decisions made during the CA. So why are they necessary? Are they an attempt to replace government? Well, they are seen as a vital addition to representative democracy, not a replacement. Under our present system, society is seemingly becoming more and more polarised, and many decisions are based on knee-jerk reactions and limited information. With citizens' assemblies, people are required to listen to experts and ask questions if they don't understand something. They are given time for this information to be taken in. So time to reflect and think about what's been said to them. They are then asked to deliberate or discuss possible outcomes with small groups of people who may be from very different backgrounds, ages, or political persuasion, and then come up with suggestions and solutions. Those solutions, recommendations, can then be fed back to government or local council, depending if it's a national citizens' assembly or a local citizens' assembly. So, for example, I'll give you in a national situation, it is expected, for example, in the case of the Climate and Ecological Bill, if that goes through, it's a private member's bill, if it goes through, then recommendations made by the participants need to get to 80% of the CA to be implemented by the government. So recommendations which are not implemented will go to Parliament for debate and vote. Therefore, it is a system whereby citizens, government and Parliament are all involved. Under our present system, so let's go back to why are they necessary. Under our present system, government is selected every 5 years to represent those who voted for them on a range of very different topics. So the emphasis is on short-term, not long-term planning, which is needed in a case like when we're dealing with climate change and climate emergency. Over their 5-year term, politicians also rely on opinion polls to inform their judgments and decisions about what their constituents want. But opinions can be knee-jerk reactions with little consideration of cost or how the question is posed. Also, how informed are constituents about the topic before they answer a narrow yes/no question on it? Politicians are concerned about pleasing others in order to get re-elected. As our system is set up on party lines, MPs have to follow party positions. With the deliberative process, i.e. discussion, which goes back, to ancient Athens, it's really a very old way and a good way, many would argue, me included. Deliberative processes, which include CAs, supported by safeguards against bias, really important, lead to more diverse and informed voices in political debates than in a purely elected body. CA members are not chosen to represent political parties and therefore are free to make decisions solely based on their informed viewpoints, values, and sense of what policies would be for the best of the common, for the common good and future generations. Okay, so what are the main steps in a CA? Well, the main steps are learning from experts and stakeholders who have been chosen by a coordinating group running the CA. Now, the impartiality of the team of coordinators is essential. They are independent from those funding the process, and checking them is the advisory board. In the case of Ada and Worthing, the team was the Democratic Society, a non-partisan and politically independent professional body which specialises in running CAs. The advisory board develops key criteria for the selection of the experts and stakeholders. The advisory body ensures that the background material and evidence selected and presented is balanced and presents a broad and fair representation of opinion. The advisory body can be made up in different ways, i.e. academics and practitioners. The oversight panel monitors the advisory panel and proceedings. This is made up of members of the public, representatives of the government, people who will be affected locally by any decisions, grassroots campaigners, and other stakeholders such as NGOs. They monitor the whole proceedings and make sure that processes are adhered to and ensure compliance to standards. So here you may have an influence from, for example, Extinction Rebellion or a environmental group who are acting as members of the public, but they're overseeing what's going on and making sure that procedures are going ahead as they should do. But I must stress that Extinction Rebellion, the core body of people making the decisions will not be made up only of, for example, Extinction Rebellion members. They will be from a cross section with very different ideas, very different backgrounds, but it's the job of that group to come together, listen to the evidence, ask questions and make decisions based on what the question they are being asked. Now, so if participants listen to the evidence and then they can ask questions if they don't understand something, they are given time and space to look at an issue in depth. And then comes deliberation. Now, with deliberation or discussion in small groups, they discuss what they've heard, bearing in mind the overall question that they have been asked to make suggestions around. Obviously, the questions posed are really important. Mostly they have been around, they've been around how to react to reach net carbon zero by 2050, which, as I said, most agree is too late. During the deliberation process, in the small groups, each group is assigned a facilitator, and that's really crucial that a facilitator is present. So this is to make sure that one person in the group doesn't dominate the discussion and that everyone has a chance to speak. Importantly, the facilitators should be experienced practitioners who can ensure that the deliberation process is respectful. They should be impartial and do not have the opportunity to voice their own opinion. So each small group, again at random, come together, discuss the topic that they've just listened to, reach a discussion, and that is aided by each group having a facilitator who is a professional. And then the third part of the process is just, so we've had, first of all, we've had the learning, where they listen to the expert information. We have deliberation, and now the third part, which is the decision making. So members come to conclusions or vote on a matter. Often this is carried out using a system of trade-offs of how the members arrived at their conclusions, how the members arrived at their conclusions. All of this is recorded through a summary or a report. So how did they actually come to that conclusion? So have we had CAs in this country already? Yes, we've had a climate assembly in Birmingham, as I said, last year, and their findings were delivered in September. And as I have said, Brighton and Hove have just have a look at their website. Ada and Worthing also look at their district council website. There's also resources up there, and Chichester will have a CA. Again, how can these take place during COVID? As I've already said, these meetings really lend themselves to Zoom meetings because you have breakout rooms. How do we make sure that decisions reached will be listened to? As I said, in the case of a CEE, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, if that goes through, MPs want to see the introduction in this country, which many MPs want to see introduced in this country. Then all suggestions agreed by a majority of participants, 80%, should be translated into actual policy. So these are, citizen assemblies are a way to really break deadlock on some very difficult situations, and it has been noted that constituents would rather take the decisions from peers than government. So there you have it, and now I'm going to ask if you have any questions. Thank you very much.